I just played the music, but I never knew.
Hello, Hello, Democrats. It is 3:51. We are 15 minutes away from the results in a way that you guys can read them. I will read them out. We will have them available on the website with an asterisk. I will be back at 4:05 with those results and talk about the asterisks and talk about next steps. Thank you so very much for your patience. Thanks for hanging in. Thanks for participating in our first ever virtual convention as we work these little, we work all of this out. I'll be back at 4:05. Thanks.
Hello, Democrats. I know we can't be together in person today, but I wanted to send a word of encouragement to some of the hardest working Democrats in this country. I'll get straight to the point. This is a time of tremendous crisis for our nation and for the world. Unemployment is approaching depression-era levels. Over 1 million people have been infected and tens of thousands have died. And people of color are being infected and dying at disproportionate rates. And there is no clear end in sight for social distancing. The Trump administration's response to the coronavirus outbreak has been cruel, reckless, and incompetent. As the Trump administration continues to fall short, it is critical that we hold the federal government accountable and stand with leaders who are fighting for a government that works for everyone. None of this will be possible if we don't protect our elections. Elections are the beating heart of a democracy. If Americans are forced to choose between voting or staying safe from the virus, democracy as we know it will be lost. So here are 4 steps I'm fighting for right now to make it easier for Americans to vote safely during this pandemic. Step 1, every American should be able to register to vote safely and easily. End voter purges for the duration of the pandemic and require all states to offer online registration. Wisconsin and Georgia have accelerated efforts to remove hundreds of thousands of people unnecessarily from their voter rolls. This pandemic must not be used as a cover for racist voter purges. Now, step 2, keep voters healthy by making the process of casting a ballot easier and more accessible. Give everyone the option to vote by mail. Offer 30 days of early voting and extend polling hours. Step 3, fight disinformation and increase election security. Russia and China have already begun to peddle conspiracies, and we need to fight back. And Congress should require that states put in place robust ballot tracking tools to ensure that voters can follow their ballots. And step 4, give states the resources they need to administer the vote and to keep poll workers safe. Protecting elections will require billions, not millions, of dollars. The task of protecting our democracy has never been more vital. This is a fight that comes to us, and we cannot afford to back down. Lives are on the line. We face an uphill battle, but I am confident that if we stand together, if we fight together, if we persist together, we will make it through this time of crisis. So please stay safe out there. I'll see you on the other side.
Hello, everyone. I wish that this year we were meeting under different circumstances. Separated from one another by a deadly virus, more than 100,000 lives lost, many needlessly, because of the lack of movement on the part of the administration. Millions out of work. And once again, the words, "I can't breathe," echoing in our ears. As we watch the brutal, horrifying killing of George Floyd, it's outrageous and enraging. None of us can turn away. None of us can be silent. We're dealing with multiple national crises. We need leadership right now. Leadership that will bring everyone to the table so that we can take measure to root out systemic racism. It's time for us to take a hard look at the uncomfortable truth. It's time for us to face the deep, open wound of systemic racism in this nation. Nothing about this is going to be easy or comfortable. But if we simply allow this wound to scab over once more without treating the underlying injury, we're never going to truly heal. The very soul of America is at stake. That's why I'm running for president. And that's why I stand united with every single Democrat behind our mission to beat Donald Trump and restore real leadership to the White House. We have to do more than just beat Trump. We have to keep the House. We have to win back the United States Senate. We have to lead, deliver meaningful change for people that are hurting all across the nation. And that means we need strong state parties to win up and down the ticket. The stakes in this election have never been higher for our country. So we have to work harder than ever. We need to stand up as a nation, stand with the Black community, stand with minority communities, and come together as one America to deliver justice for all Americans. If we stand together, we're going to win the battle for the soul of this nation. We need to do this, and we can do it. We've never failed when we've worked together. So thank you, and may God bless our troops.
They look like they've been updated with information? No, they don't.
Yeah, I think these are the same. When we're born, actually, it's been partially updated because this had nothing on it.
But sure, there were more votes than that, on
Maybe.
National Committee. Yeah, we had 233 online votes.
So if you scroll to the bottom with the bars, are all the names there? Yes. Okay.
This? Yes.
Okay, just the buck ton of names. Yeah.
Yeah.
At large by, I think there's just like a whole big long list, and there's like the graph, there's like one big tall one on the right side of the graph. Can you ask Andrew if that sounds right?
This is Joshua Harris, still president of the Young Democrats of America. I am joined by the icon, my personal hero, a great friend of mine. I like to tell people that we were friends on Facebook before they But I want to welcome Simone Sanders, the legend herself. How are you doing today?
You know what? How are you? First of all, I'm okay, but I hear you were out at the protest. So how are you doing?
Yeah, so we actually, protest kind of organically happened last night. And then we had the one that we set up today. Last night, about 500 people jumped in. It was mostly peaceful. We had no issues. The police came, tried to push us out of the intersection. We tried to negotiate with them and let them know, hey, we're just trying to protest. Like, it's not worth getting into this altercation. And so eventually they let us have it. Once the sun went down, of course, people, specific people, we know this. There's the people who were there for the protest, and there are these agitators. And so there were some issues last night. Today, we had over 5,000 people show up to this protest. I've been screaming, as you can probably hear, but 5,000 people in Oklahoma City showing up for Black Lives Matter protest. Honestly, one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen.
Joshua, why? I'm gonna put my interviewer hat on for a second. I know y'all are supposed to. Folks be asking me questions, but I just think it's important that we start talking about this. You know, Vice President Biden, he issued a statement overnight. Today, he had been on the phone with mayors of many of the major cities who had, seen lots of unrest over the night, and then he went out into the streets of Wilmington today to see the unrest and the aftermath of the protests for himself, to meet and talk with people. I think we've got pictures up on his social media accounts from that. But I think that there's a lot of conversation happening around this, and Vice President Biden has been really clear that folks have a right, have a duty to be able to protest. The pain people are feeling is real. Why did you feel it was important to be out there, not only yesterday, but today? Why was it important?
You know, that's a great question. And I think that's the question that doesn't get asked enough. Mm-hmm. You know, they hear George and they're like, oh, you're out here for George. The reality is this is so much bigger than George Floyd. And we are out here to honor him, but we are out here because he's not the first, he's not the 10th, he's not the 50th, he's not the 100th. We have lists and lists of names of Black and brown people who have had their lives taken from them when they were unarmed, because they were in situations where a police officer who may have feared for their life, or at least that's the narrative that we get, says they had to take those actions. And so until we get to a point to where either they're not afraid to police these communities, or they are so afraid of the justice system that they have to think twice, then we have to demonstrate how our frustrations are causing us to come together and send a very clear message that enough is enough. It's time for a change. We need real leadership. We need real accountability, and we're not going to stop until we get it.
Real leadership and real accountability. I find it jarring that the horrific viral killing of George Floyd comes after we have learned the name of Breonna Taylor, after we have seen the video of Ahmaud Arbery, where the prosecutors had we just saw the video, but the county had the video for 74 days before anyone else saw it. This all comes on top of the United States reaching well over 100,000 deaths from the coronavirus pandemic, more than 40 million people have filed for unemployment. We're in a public health crisis. We are having this conversation socially distant via Zoom right now on Facebook because we cannot be in person. And now we know from a Columbia University study that had the administration just acted just a little bit sooner, maybe we would have been able to save at least 36,000 people from dying from the coronavirus. So there's just a lot of things have been percolating and stirring. And at this point in time, I'm just really happy we're having this conversation. As folks know, we were supposed to have this town hall on Friday, but for obvious reasons, we needed to reschedule. But I'm really, really glad that we are talking today, and I look forward to answering you all's questions, because I really believe that now more than ever, we need leadership. Vice President Biden, he launched his campaign saying that he was here to help restore the soul of the nation, that we need to rebuild the backbone of this country, that we want to bring the country together. And now more than ever, those words ring so, so true. I believed in his theory of the case then, that's why I joined his campaign, and I believe in it now. And I think for young people especially, young people's a range, okay? We're talking about not just college students, but when I'm talking about young people, I'm talking about young professionals, young elected officials, young people who, many of them who have been just disproportionately affected by this pandemic, and young people of color, especially, who are hurting viscerally by what we're seeing in the news. Now more than ever, it is our time to exercise our power to participate. And much has been made about a conversation about voting, and much ink has been spilled, and I'm sure will be spilled about the role of the election in this moment. But I'll just say I live in Washington, D.C., and on, what is today, Sunday, on my days run together, on Friday, it was protesters that went to the White House. They didn't go to the Wilson building where the mayor works. They did not go to the Department of Justice building. They did not go to the Department of Agriculture. They didn't go to the police department. The protesters went to the White House. Because who the president is matters, who the president appoints matters, what the president says matters. And we are experiencing just a grotesque abdication of leadership and governance in this moment. And I just think everything is converging right now. We need leadership and empathy now more than ever, somebody with a plan. So I'm just really excited to be here with you all to take your questions. But I'll tell you, I signed up on Team Joe because I believe in what Joe Biden is saying. I am excited to chair our League 46 effort. That's our effort to mobilize young people college students, young professionals, young elected officials to help elect Joe Biden as the 46th president of the United States. Because, you know, we are the ones. We are not the leaders of tomorrow. We are leaders of today, right now. Josh, you're a leader right now. So many people on this call are leaders right now. And we have to come together right now and do everything we can to not only exercise our power at the ballot box, but exercise our thought power as it comes to policies. Like, I think we can do this and we can get this done. Vice President Biden always says, this is the United States of America. There is absolutely nothing we cannot do. And our campaign manager, Jill O'Malley Dillon, regularly says, we can do hard things. I will just end by saying this week has been unusually hard and unnecessarily hard for so many people. It shouldn't have to be this hard. But I will tell you, I'm here because, you know, I signed up to do the hard work. I didn't know it was going to be this hard. I didn't know it was going to be this devastating, this sad. I am angry from what I'm seeing, but I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful because I truly believe the work that we are doing, that we can do together over the next couple of months will help save lives. So thank you guys for convening this conversation.
Of course. And the thing that I love about Joe Biden so much in this moment is that he acknowledges why people are protesting. And he acknowledges the protesters' emotions and feelings. As you probably know, today is the 99th anniversary of the burning of Black Wall Street.
In Tulsa.
In Tulsa, when we were, you know, building our own communities, when we were investing in each other, there was a group of people in the United States government who decided that that space couldn't exist. And so we don't want people out there burning buildings. That's not the intention of any of the real protesters who were out there. But we understand that buildings are buildings, and sometimes buildings get burned, but there were burning buildings way before George Floyd was killed. They've been burning buildings way before any of these issues happened. And when we see people who can riot over a baseball team winning a game and be met with less of an aggressive response that we've been seeing, I think that is really indicative of the need for change in this country. And I'm so glad that Joe Biden is on the right side of this conversation, because we know that the president is not.
No, he's not. I want to read, I think a good thing that just helped kick us off here. I'm going to read, you know, the last two lines of Vice President Biden's statement that he put out last night. He said, "We are a nation in pain, but we must not allow this pain to destroy us. We are a nation enraged, but we cannot allow our rage to consume us. We are a nation exhausted, but we will not allow our exhaustion to defeat us. As president, I will help lead this conversation. And more importantly, I will listen. I will keep the commitment I made to George's brother, Philanice, that George will not be a hashtag. We must and we will get to a place where everyone, regardless of race, believes that to protect and serve means to protect and serve them. Only by standing together will we rise stronger than before, more equal, more just, more hopeful, and that much closer to our more perfect union. Please stay safe. Please take care of each other." That's the work. That's the work before.
That's a word. Look, me and you can go back and forth for a long.
We go all day, Josh. We go all day. Let's take some questions.
Right. But I got a bunch of awesome, super involved young Dems from around the country, and I'm going to invite on here today. The first one I'm going to invite is a person that I am really just inspired by her leadership. She is always answering the call whenever I need anything. She's always on the forefront. I put a post on Facebook today looking for a couple of people. She tagged 70 of them. And so this is one of those people that I'm always happy to work with. Rachel Paul, the president of the Georgia Young Democrats. Will you join us?
Hey, Josh.
Where's
Hey, Simone.
Rachel?
Thank you
Hi,
so much for
Rachel.
having me. Hi, how are you?
I'm good.
So like I said, I'm the president of the Young Democrats of Georgia, and we have obviously a lot going on right now. Our primary election is June 9th, so it's coming up very, very soon. And we want to inspire people to take this rage, take this exhaustion, and express it at the ballot box. And we've been asking I asked a lot of our members, you know, what would they like to hear? What would they like to see? And one of the questions that we got was, what is the campaign's plan to effect a transformation of American energy production from fossil fuel-based systems to a more sustainable, renewable system? What actions will be taken to encourage or enforce sustainable production of energy resources? And would the Vice President bypass Congress and use executive authority if need be when elected?
Oh, this is, of course, the young Dems are going to come with the good questions. Okay, we're just going to kick it off. Well, thank you for your question, Rachel. I think that the coronavirus pandemic, COVID-19, is a glaring reminder of just how fragile our world is. It's just how fragile it is, and frankly, just how connected we are. So I want to say a couple of things about Vice President Biden and climate, and his plans for climate, and his plans for the environment. First and foremost, this is something that is personal for him. It's something that he's fought for a really long time. I don't know if folks realize, and if not, Joe Biden, if you ever ask him about it, he will remind you, okay, that way back when, before addressing climate change was politically popular, before calling out the existential threat that it is to our environment was popular, Vice President Biden was beating the drum on this issue. He has worked on this when it came to the Recovery Act. And so let me just tell you a little bit about his plan. So first, he believes that we can get to 100% clean energy economy by 2050, zero emissions by 2050. And we're going to invest $1.7 trillion. That's a $1.7 trillion plan to get that done. And that work, though, is going to create 10 million new clean energy jobs. And I think this is really important, because when we talk about climate change, I think we have to talk about it in, there's levels to this. There's an environmental justice aspect. There is a labor aspect and an infrastructure aspect. There's also the public, there's a public health aspect to this, but there's also a foreign policy aspect. I don't actually think climate change is a domestic policy issue. It's a foreign policy issue. The United States is only 15% of the world's emissions. And so if we do everything we need to do right here in the United States of America, it still won't be enough, because we have to get the rest of the world on board. So Vice President Biden believes, yes, we need to rejoin the Paris Climate Accords. He would do that on day one, but he'd also make sure that he's convening the world. He's going to pick up the phone and call these world leaders and say, we got to get this together. This is just what we need to do. This is what we need to make happen. Those are just some of the things that he's out there talking about as it relates to this issue. I will say we put, this was, I think it was one of the first plans that we put forward, because it is so important. And I'll note that our plan was praised from all different corners and sects of the Democratic Party and the big tent of the world. And even some of the people that were out there protesting Joe Biden, they even had to say we had a good plan. Did I answer your question, Rachel?
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Vice President Biden, and honestly, I like to call him President Joe Biden, because I believe in speaking it into existence. And I know that we are going to not make the same mistake twice and give Trump 4 more years. What I love so much about President Biden is that he speaks from the heart, and he makes sure that people understand that he speaks from the heart, and he shares empathy. And honestly, that is so effective in leadership. That's so effective in making people feel comfortable and letting them know that they have a person in the White House who isn't so disconnected from them like we've seen these past 4 years. We're going to keep this going. I'm going to invite a great friend of mine, Denixie Gareka, on the call. Not only is he YWA treasurer, he's been a friend of mine, former state president in this organization. He's been doing the work all across the country, and I know that he's going to come with some great questions for you today.
All right, let's do it.
How's it going, Simone? I want to thank you for taking the time to have this conversation with us. It's not an easy time for anybody, but these are important conversations to have. So I really do appreciate it. Also, shout out, I was a state president of Nebraska.
Oh, go Big Red. Okay, got my Big Red blazer on today.
Hey, there we go. I love that. So I definitely had to address that before we kept going. So my younger brother's graduating from college in December, and he's entering one of the worst job markets since the Great Depression. What's the vice president's plan to really kickstart the economy, help get young people employed, either because they're just graduating from college or entering the workforce, or because they were laid off during the pandemic?
So one, I would like to note that young people, we are just so extremely resilient. Millennials like us, Daniel, we have been through, the financial crash, the Great Recession, and now we're being hit again with an economic hardship that folks are saying is has tracked worse than the Great Depression. Generation Z, like your brother, they've got it even worse. I mean, I could not imagine having to spend my last 3 months of my senior year in high school or in college in a sheltering in place or in quarantine, not knowing what the world is going to look like, not knowing if I will have a job. And so the reality is that the recovery that our campaign talks about, a Biden recovery, is a recovery that will and just must directly impact and benefit young people in this country, whether you're a young person that just graduated, you're a young person like myself, who's an entrepreneur out there, or if you're a young person with a family in the job market and you don't know what it's going to look like out here, the Biden recovery will benefit all of us. So we actually are coming out with a very robust jobs plan sometime very, very soon. So I don't want to, jump the jobs plan, but I do think that there's something to be said right now about reopening, because the reality is, I think there's a false notion going on right here. There's a false choice being put forth by a number of people out there, the president included, okay? And this false choice is like, do we get people back to work, or do we protect public health and safety? And the reality is that's a false choice. We can protect public health and safety and reopen the economy at the same time. So it's not that that no one wants the economy reopened. Vice President Biden wants it reopened just as much as anyone else. He wants folks to be able to get back to work. But we have to make sure that it's safe. So it's about a plan about going about doing it. So Vice President Biden has put forth a plan. He very early on that we have updated and put out again. He gets together with his Public Health Advisory Committee and his Economic Advisory Committee every single day, and he gets a briefing. And in these briefings, we're talking about what's happening out there in the world, what the doctors are saying, what the economic experts are saying, and then what kind of policies can we put forth? What should Joe Biden be saying? And the scientists are informing what we're doing as it relates to reopening. And so there's a plan to go about this safely to make sure we're getting people back to work. So I encourage people to check out our full plan on our website. But again, in terms of the jobs, just know that we are, like, young people at the forefront. Will be at the forefront of this policy that we're talking about. Young people of color especially have been hit extremely hard by this. So we hear y'all and we're coming, because we got to be able to create jobs. We're on track to every month that the jobs numbers come out. I honestly, I'm just shocked. I'm aghast, because the many people have just been gripped by this public health crisis, and then to throw losing your job on top of that, or maybe you haven't lost it all the way, but you've been furloughed. So in some respects, you still have health insurance, but you are not getting paid. You've had to file for unemployment. It is just an unspeakable situation that so many people in America are in right now.
Well, I look forward to going on the website and checking out that jobs plan. Again, thank you for having this conversation. And Joshua, you're up.
Thank you. Now our plan is coming. Now I will tell y'all, don't y'all go looking for the whole full plan right now. It's not out yet, but it is coming very soon.
All right.
We'll make sure we preview this thing
for
the young Democrats, okay?
There we go. All right. Thank you.
Because they're on their phones right now going to the website to see the plan.
They're like, what is the plan? But I will say, we would love to, I know we're on live, all of the internet is like, what do y'all want to do? Please, as young people, we are the closest. I mean, who better to tell and to say what young people need in a recovery than young people themselves? And so while we have had lots of conversations, and our policy folks have lots of conversations, we welcome your feedback. So please, y'all, send me your ideas. Josh has my email. I will not be getting my email to the whole internet. But Josh, if you will send a note around to the YDA family, and I definitely we want to make sure we're in constant dialogue about this. And then as we are rolling out this plan, how can we work with you all to make sure that we are amplifying it in various communities, but also, meeting people exactly where they are, talking about the nitty-gritty parts of this so that everybody can understand what a Biden recovery entails.
Right. And not only is this a transition to the next question, but, we saw that a group of college-age students were left out for the last stimulus package that was put in there. And we know that student loan debt is going to follow them around. We know that they need to buy food and pay rent just like the rest of us. And so it's good to know that Vice President Biden is already focused on the issues that are important to us. And that brings me to a really great friend of mine. I actually had to beg her to run with me. I knew that she was going to be so great for this organization if she would just lend us a little bit of her talent. And she has proven that again and again. Terry Chapman is not only the former president of the Alabama Young Democrats, but now she is the vice president of the Young Democrats of America, and just truly one of my favorite people on this board.
No.
Oh, all right. Terry looks fabulous, by the way, okay?
Oh, thank you. I tried. So, hey, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. What is your, tell me about it. What's your student debt question, Terry? Give it to me straight.
Ooh, well, all right. So it's a multi-part question, but it's all related. So my question is, student loan debt has had a very debilitating effect on millions of Americans who just want a chance at getting a good job and having a happy life. For one, my husband and I, we have a substantial amount of student loan debt combined, and it has been tough to save for things like a house and other essentials, and we aren't even thinking about retirement at this point. So my question is, what challenges will Vice President Biden face as he enacts his plans to cancel student loan debt? And what is the likelihood of this becoming a reality? And how can we help?
So, I mean, to be clear, I think the coronavirus pandemic has really just thrown a lot of, a lot of things, how we thought we needed to go about things, what we thought we were going to do, kind of thrown us for a loop, student debt included. And so Vice President Biden has recently put out a plan for canceling student loan debt for low income and middle class folks. But specifically as it relates to the pandemic, about what's going on right now, he has called for canceling $10,000 of student loan debt immediately right now, given the pandemic. Come on now, somebody snaps for that, okay? Because I got student loan debt just like everybody else. But his plan also speaks to ensuring that for folks, I mean, $10,000 is a lot, but as we know, some people have upwards of $100,000 of student loan debt. I know I have like 75. Okay, I'm with you.
My husband and I combined,
combined more than $100,000. And so Vice President Biden's plan also calls for, putting a cap on what people have to pay. So for folks earning more than $25,000, you will not pay more than 5% of your income.
Okay.
So I think there's some wiggle room there, but also for folks earning up to or less than 125K, Vice President Biden, we put out a plan that cancels part of that student loan debt as well. So we've done a lot on student loan debt. The Obama-Biden administration had a really robust plan for folks who go into public service, and then they can get some of their loans forgiven. Under Vice President Biden's plan, we expand that program a little bit to include some additional professions, so that, we can widen the net. But he also makes sure that we have some plans on the front end, though, for some young people who are still pursuing their education, whether you are an undergraduate or whether you're in graduate school. And so I just really think we have to look at this holistically, but also understand that, these things are intersectional. And so the fact that someone is crippled by student loan debt also means that it affects their ability to buy a home. So Vice President Biden has a plan for first-time home buyers. Lots of them young people. Okay, I am in a nice little cute condo that I don't own. Okay, so I'm one of these people that will benefit from Vice President Biden's program, which gives a $15,000 advanceable tax credit to first-time home buyers, in addition to any of the other money a first-time home buyer might receive. And $15,000 advanceable tax credit is very important, because that means I don't got to wait till I file my taxes to get it. It's something that I get up front. And I think that matters when we talk about building wealth for young people and closing the wealth gap in communities across this country, specifically for African-American and Latino families as opposed to white families. So this is all intersectional. So there's a long way of me saying we got a plan, and it's an intersectional plan that speaks to a number of different things. Thank you for the question.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's the intersectional plan part of it, I think, is what really brings it together, because it acknowledges that there is a difference for all of us. There is no one size fits all solution. So thank you so much for your question, Terry.
And thank y'all.
I actually want to sneak in a question of my own, if you don't mind, because one of the things that really has weighed heavy on me, not just in the last day, but in general, is we talk a lot about gun violence. We talk about mass shootings. We talk about police violence, but we oftentimes leave out of the equation all of the other types of violence we see. For me and my family, if you Google mass shootings in 2013, you look at Dallas, that's my family. My brother, my sister and her mother were lost. My two little brothers were 13 and 10 years old when they felt a bullet enter their body. This is extremely lost life. This is extremely important and impactful. We're a resourceful though generation, you know, so we're gonna make it work in the dark if we got to.
Okay.
This is extremely important to me, but it also, you know, doesn't really cover the full spectrum, because what about domestic violence? What about the violence that's happening in the home? Like, I think that we really need to cover that, and we really need to discuss that. And could you and maybe speak to Vice President Biden's plan on addressing this situation?
So we have an epidemic of gun violence in America. And to your point, so oftentimes when we talk about gun violence, what people are only talking about is mass shootings. And as we know, there's everyday gun violence that happens in communities all across the country that doesn't rise to the level of the attention of the national news media. So Vice President Biden believes we have to, you know, yes, address these mass shootings, but also address the everyday gun violence that happens in the country. So he believes, yes, we need to ban assault weapons. We need to close gun show loopholes. We need to close the boyfriend loophole. We need to establish red flag laws. We have to make sure we are underscoring our commitment that he made in the Violence Against Women Act. And I mean, I will argue that there's a bill right now in Congress that is sitting on Mitch McConnell's desk that has yet to be advanced to the Senate that will reauthorize and fund and expend funding for the Violence Against Women Act. And it's really important to this conversation that we're having. But to this question of this everyday gun violence, in Vice President Biden's plan for his criminal justice plan, and he also reiterated in his plan for Black America, in our criminal justice section, we talk about piloting a program in 40 cities across the country to address gun violence. And those 40 cities are chosen. 20 of the cities are the cities with the highest homicides, period. And then the other 20 cities are the cities with the highest homicides per capita. And you know that having the highest homicides per capita is different than having the highest homicides. And it's a program that will be piloted through the Department of Justice. It would be a grant program that gives almost $1 billion across to these 40 different cities. And then eventually we would expand, but that's just one specific proposal. And it's just so important. And Vice President Biden believes that we have to attack this issue, that we cannot wait, that we need leadership on this issue. And we can't be afraid to stand up to the NRA. We have to take on the gun lobby. And Vice President Biden has beaten the NRA twice, and he intends to beat them a third time as president. Excuse me. Oh, excuse me. And the last point to this, Josh, it struck me that you have a very personal story to tell as it relates to gun violence in America. And so many people do as well. So many people, whether it's kids in inner cities, folks that in school, they go to school every day fearing that their school will be next, whether we're talking about high schools, elementary schools, or college campuses. So mental health is an important part of this as well. We have to make sure that we are providing trauma services. There are young people in America are living through just a traumatic time, and mass shootings should not be a regular occurrence. We should not be okay with everyday gun violence. And so we also have to make sure that we are providing mental health resources to folks in the community because of the trauma that they are living through is just so extremely deep right now.
That's so good. That's so good, because we all we oftentimes leave out the mental health component of it, and we as a country don't invest in mental health nearly to the level that we should. I actually, these transitions are just falling into our conversations, and that's what happens when you talk to an icon like yourself. But a brother of mine who I met in Generation Progress doing this gun violence work, reached out to me. We became fast friends, and when it came time for me to run, I asked him if he would run with me. He's one of my vice presidents, but he is also so close to me. He is a brother. Muhammad Tasbir Alam, will you join us? You might have seen him before. He's on the Joe Financial Council, right?
Yep.
Oh, yes, yes. Oh, hi, Muhammad.
Hey,
Yes,
Simone,
you
thank
stand
you.
with Black women shirt. Okay, Planned Parenthood.
Yep. Thank you, Josh, for the introduction, and thank you, Simone, for joining us. You're amazing, so it's a privilege to be able to talk to you. And so just as a follow-up to the question Josh asked, he and I do work with a project called Fight for a Future, which is a part of Generation Progress. So my question is also about gun violence. And if you remember back in March during the beginning of this lockdown process around the country, there were several notable news articles pointing out that it was the first March since 2002 to not have a school shooting. So that's a statistics that we should not be proud of. And it shouldn't take literally a lockdown of our entire society to prevent school shootings. So my question is, how does Vice President Biden plan to address the proliferation of guns in this country and prevent future violence, especially if there is not a Congress that is willing to work with us?
We have to hold Congress accountable. Look, Vice President Biden has said over and over again that gun violence is a public health epidemic. It really is. Gun violence in America right now is a public health epidemic. And if Congress won't act, we have to go and take our plight and our plea directly to the people, and the people are going to help push their elected officials. I know it seems hopeless right now, but we have done this before. Okay, that we have taken on the gun lobby and won in the crime bill, with the little crime bill everybody likes to talk about, lots of things in the crime bill. One of the, I would say, good parts of the crime bill was this ban on assault weapons. And it was very important because for the 10 years that the crime bill instituted a ban on assault weapons for 10 years until Republicans in Congress went in and undid that work. For 10 years, it mattered. We saw a difference in what was happening across this country. And so we can create change. We can also invest in smart gun technology. There is technology out there so that if it is not your hand on your gun, no one will be able to shoot it. I mean, we have to we have to do the work in investing in a lot of this work. But we also have to make sure that, again, as I noted, we need to close the gun show loophole. We need to close some of these other loopholes, like the boyfriend loophole and the Charleston loophole. And I mean, like these are things that we can do right now, and these passed broad bipartisan support. So I would even argue that this isn't like a Democratic issue or a Republican issue. This is this is an epidemic for the country. This is just a people issue, a citizen issue that we have to address. And Joe Biden is going to make it his mission to get it done. Our kids shouldn't have to go to school doing active shooter drill, an active shooter training. I find that just heart-wrenching. And if that does not bother you, if that does not upset you, if that does not move you to act, then I'm not sure what will. But Vice President Biden is keyed in on this issue. It's something that's very important to him. And we believe that we can get movement on this. We can get it done. And thank you for the work that you are doing to help move the needle. That's what it's going to take.
Thank you, Simone. Thank you so much.
That's good. I love it because not only does she talk about what Vice President Biden can do, she throws it back and saying, this is what you can do as well.
Oh, yes, because it's a group effort, okay?
It takes all of us doing our part in order for us to get this done, in order for us to, if we're going to reclaim the soul of a nation, we can't think that showing up in November is going to do that for us. We got to show up the day after, the month after, the week after, to make sure that we're supporting the Vice President, who will then be the president, and this Democratic House and Senate. We're going to send them there with, you know?
Yeah.
So I want to bring on a very special friend of mine. I actually got to watch her dissertation as she became a doctor in her field. So she is PhD, and every time I talk to her, I refer to her as such to let her know that I respect her so much. She not only is a doctor, but she still finds time to give her time, effort, and energy to this party as the president of the Young Democrats of Utah and as the chair of our president of Presidents Association. I call them the president of presidents. They're called the Association of Charter Unit Presidents, but we're supposed to use correct terms. But I like president of presidents because it sounds so good and it really captures how awesome she is. So Sasha, would you join me?
Thanks, Josh.
All right, doctor.
Thank you so much for being on with us today. So my question is, I grew up in a rural community, and a lot of us are from more rural states. Utah has a really sizable rural population. And these communities have really been struggling economically during the COVID-19 shutdown. And we know that even as the economy rebounds, young people living in these communities are going to continue to struggle. Can you talk to us about how Vice President Biden plans to make sure that rural areas of our country are included in the economic recovery?
So, Vice President Biden believes that the federal government under his administration, this would be the case, that they have to completely change the way that they interact with rural communities. I mean, specifically when we talk about poverty, for example, I don't know if people understand that 85% of the 350 most impoverished counties in America, 85% of those are outside of metropolitan areas. So we have to invest in our rural communities. We have to, it is necessary if we want to keep society functioning, moving, and going. And a Biden administration will do just that by partnering with rural communities to build wealth, to create jobs, so on and so forth. But how will we do that? Well, we plan to create a strike force, if you will, for rural communities. And really taking the federal government into these communities, making sure we are partnering so that they are pushed to the front of the line for a number of the resources that are needed. And then as it relates to addressing impoverished communities specifically, Vice President Biden believes that we need to apply Jim Clyburn's 10-20-30 plan. And that will directly affect rural communities across this country. But I mean, it's an economic recovery issue, but it's also a healthcare issue, right? Because we're living through an economic crisis and a public health crisis. And in many rural communities across the country, hospitals have closed. So if you need a test, let's just say you think you have contracted the coronavirus, COVID-19. If I live in a rural community where my hospital is closed and the next available provider is, a whole nother city away, what do I do? What if I don't have a car to get there? These are just things that we have to think about. And so this is something that, what was it, a week ago? All my days went together, y'all. About a week and a half ago, Vice President Biden went to Wisconsin, virtual travel day, but we did a rural roundtable actually. And then we did a rally and that was statewide, actually countrywide basically, because we're virtual. But our rural roundtable was specifically focused on talking about this very issue for folks in Wisconsin who live outside of the metropolitan area. What are their needs? How would a Biden presidency benefit them? So I really appreciate the question because we don't talk enough about our rural communities. I'm from Nebraska, as Daniel mentioned, and I worked the governor's race in 2014. And I'm from Omaha, but in the governor's race, I went back and forth across the state more times than I ever thought that I would. And most of the state of Nebraska is rural. And I went to places that I never thought that I didn't even know existed in my own state, and met with people and saw just the lack of investment in some parts of our country, and how it makes a difference in the lives that people live. So Vice President Biden is definitely committed to partnering with rural communities and investing in them. And I thank you for your work, Doctor.
Thank you so much for answering my question, and thank you for everything that you do.
Thank you.
Thanks, Doc. We always appreciate having you. Simone, I think that this conversation has been phenomenal. And I think that you have done an excellent job at telling us what the vice president is going to do when he's elected, but also telling us what we can do. But I think that we need that charge. We need that moment at the end. When we think about League 46, which you chair, the people might not know what League 46 is. So this is the perfect opportunity to inform them so that they can get involved. And then once they're involved in that, I want you to speak to the people who are involved in that and all of the 150,000 plus young Democrats in our membership about what they can do and how they can be effective in helping get Vice President Biden elected.
Thank you, Josh. Well, first, thank you for pulling together this conversation and for the YDA family for hopping on and having me today and having this conversation. I hope to come back again so we can do this again, maybe 2 or 3 times before this election comes forth, because this is going to take all of us. I do chair League 46. League 46, again, is our effort to, by young people, to elect Joe Biden as the 46th president of the United States of America. And it's a league, so there's a couple different levels. So we've got our Students for Biden, which encompasses our high school students, our college students, but also and especially our HBCU students for Biden. And we've got a steering committee that does that work. Then we've got our young professionals for Biden. And we actually just launched our young professionals for Biden recently. We did when we've also launched our finance component. Okay, thank you, Mohammed. We launched our finance component. I did a conversation with Mayor Pete Buttigieg last week or this week actually. Oh goodness. Oh, it's been a long week. This week we did that. We did an event with Andrew Yang focused on young people in the gig economy. And the conversation was moderated by a young African-American entrepreneur, Ryan Wilson, who owns the Gathering Spot in Atlanta. And they have now expanded to Washington, D.C., that are expanding to New York and Chicago. And so that effort of young is really about how can we engage young professionals, specifically in our young professionals for Biden. How can we engage young folks that you're not going to find on a college campus, but are in their communities doing the work, who own businesses, who have ideas, who are policy experts, who are financial experts? Like, how can we engage them and pull them into this work that we're doing? So some of that is having conversations such as this, sharing Vice President Biden's vision, what he would do, getting you all's feedback, thinking how we can activate and organize in our communities. Right now, our third component is our young elected officials for Biden. And we are really excited to have folks like Mayor Randall Woodfin of Birmingham and Lieutenant Governor Garland Gilchrist of Michigan, and just folks all across the country, a range of state reps, Mayor Savante Merrick of Ithaca, New York. I'm sure many folks know Savante, okay, especially folks that are doing that generation progress work. Anybody's been with the YP family, YP4. So we have a range of young folks across the country, some state reps, some state senators who are committed to pulling in not just their constituents, but their colleagues who maybe didn't support Vice President Biden in the primary, maybe because they support another candidate or they just set out, but pulling them in now and saying, how can we do this together? And also speaking directly to their constituents and convening them. So this League 46 effort is a group effort. It is going to take all of us. Vice President Biden is committed to listening, to hearing from young people, but also empowering young people, because we're the ones that's gonna do the work. We are the people that will have to live in this world. And so we cannot wait to engage. We have to engage right now. So we look forward to working with you all. Please come join League 46, www.joebiden.com/League46. All the information is there. You can sign up. You can get on the steering committees. Now is the time to do the work, y'all. YDA has been extremely engaged. Y'all are engaged not just in a presidential election. Y'all are engaged 24/7, 365, no matter if it's a presidential, if it's an off year, if it's an off year, if it ain't but one election somewhere down in Oklahoma. Y'all are engaged. And that is the level that we need right now. None of us thought that we would be campaigning in this general election, in a global pandemic, that the country would be gripped with this unrest and this uneasiness, but this is where we are. But campaigning virtually does not mean that we cannot and should not be connecting with real people. We are actually connected today. We are having real conversation with one another, and we are moving the needle. This is the kind of things that we need to be doing in our communities across the country. Our campaign has laid out our path to victory. We have made it very clear for folks. We believe that the keys to part of a Biden coalition is young people. are African-American voters, are Latino voters, it's women, it's suburban voters, it's college-educated folks, it's non-college educated folks, African-American men, Latino men, blue-collar workers, white working class, what Obama Trump voters, as people like to say, which includes some African-American men and Latino voters. So don't think y'all know who an Obama Trump voter is right off the bat. It's more complicated than that. So that is our coalition. It's gonna take all of us. We believe that we have to protect the places that we won in 2016, like in Minnesota and Virginia and Nevada. But we also need to expand the map in places like Texas and in places like Arizona and Georgia. We believe Arizona is in play, ladies and gentlemen. It's a battleground state, okay? We will be there. Georgia is in play. Texas is in play. I've seen the polls. But we also need to win back places the Democrats won in 08 or 12, but we lost in 2016. Places like Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, Florida, and Michigan. That is not a cookie cutter approach. That means we need to have tailored programs for each one of those places that speak to that electorate. So in Arizona, we need to up the turnout of Latino voters in Maricopa County. Look, in 2018, for the first time in a decade, Maricopa County went blue for a federal election. There's movement there. I've seen these polls in Georgia. I know what's happening across the country, but we have to run tailored approaches. And that's the commitment that our campaign is making. We're gonna have folks on the ground in all these battleground states. By the end of the month of June, we will have leadership there. We'll have a coordinated campaign. We're gonna have 600 organizers that we are putting on the ground. So we've got people there to support us organizing and doing this work, but we gotta organize young people. We have to organize young people. We have to turn them up and turn them out. We wanna meet young people where they are. So I wanna do some virtual brunches. I wanna have more town hall conversations. I've been participating in brunches for the last month, every weekend. Last weekend, I did a Nebraska brunch with the Nebraska Young Professionals for Biden, and I did one in Michigan with the Michigan Young Professionals for Biden. This is the kind of work that we have to do. And then hopefully, sooner than later, as long as it's safe, we'll be able to get on the ground in communities across the country where we can meet one another physically distant, but still socially connected and do this work. So now is the time, ladies and gentlemen. The work that we are doing right now is going to decide the trajectory of life for the next 40 years. I totally believe it, I really do. We can't wait. We cannot afford another 4 years of Donald Trump. And it's not just voting against Trump or turning out against Trump. We have to turn out for something. And I believe Vice President Biden has a bold vision, a progressive vision, a vision that centers the people closest to the problem, that centers women, that centers young people, that centers people of color, that is looking for the innovative minds of all of us to get together and do the work. So let's go get it. Come on, join us. League 46, let's go.
I love it. I love everything about it. And you let me know, because when you want to do an Oklahoma brunch, we can set it up. I'm always
Come
down
on
for
now,
a good brunch.
Carissa is on. Carissa, please get with Joshua. We're going to be doing an Oklahoma brunch in about 2.5 weeks.
Beautiful. Speaking of Carissa, I want to thank Carissa. We have Carissa and Jen. They haven't been on camera with us, but they're the people who behind the screen who makes everything happen. I want you both to show your face real quick. Will you jump on the camera?
Yes, show your faces. Carissa from Team Biden is the person that leads our young professionals for Biden. Yes.
Hey.
Jen has been great. So Carissa is the person, y'all. Carissa can get you connected. Carissa is also our women's vote director, and she is, she can organize a mean house party. So I just these are the people that are going to get this work done.
Right, and Jen jumped off because she loves to be behind the scenes, but that's my chief of staff, and none of this would happen if she wasn't putting in the time, effort, and energy. So we thank you. And
yes, thank you, Jen.
You both are amazing, and I'm just honored to be on the screen right now with the three of y'all, making me look good, like I'm doing something right in life.
Trust women.
Well, you are. Trust women, trust them. Well, Joshua, I just we're gonna let you close it out, but thank you. Y'all, Josh and I have been Facebook friends for a long time, but I'll tell you, the first time I remember meeting him in person was earlier last year at a Young Professionals fundraiser I did in New York. And Josh said, I saw it on social and I came and we got in there and we connected, and I was like, we wanna do some stuff with YDA, let me know, we need to be connected, this is gonna take all of us. And now we are here doing this. We are going to do a whole lot more, but I just appreciate your leadership, your tenacity, your commitment to the work, to politics to the nuances. Like you've been at the protest and now you're on the Zoom town hall, because that's what it takes to move the needle, and that's what it's going to take to really see change in this country. So just thank you for your work.
Well, thank you for your kind words, and thank you so much for your presence. It means the world to us that you would take the time. I normally spend this time saying that you should use this link that we have provided, this graphic we provided, text us so that we have your information so we can inform you more about these events. And I always ask everybody to go to yda.org and donate, but this is a special occasion. So I'm also gonna tell you to go to joebiden.com and donate to Uncle Joe. Give him a couple of dollars.
Donate to Uncle Joe. Donate to Uncle Joe.
Uncle Joe as well, because we need him like we need YDA, and that's why we're partnering like this. And we wouldn't have been able to do it without me and you running into each other in New York City. And so I'm glad that we had that conversation. I'm glad that it turned into this conversation, and I look forward to working with you in the future. You are an icon, a legend. I see, I'm ready. When you run for office, call me. I'm the first. Okay, I'm the first one. But I appreciate you, and I want you to have an amazing day. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You all as well. Stay safe.
Hello, delegates. We are back. It is 5 o'clock. I have a list of our delegates. I said in my previous comment that it's delegates with an asterisk. So I want to explain the asterisk. Some of the numbers were too close to call. So when we feed this through our, so it's like someone got 25 votes and someone else got 25 votes. So when we sort this through and make sure that we're addressing our representation goals, we will shore up the numbers and have more accurate numbers, and that will require more than the people who are here. So I am ready to read off the list of folks. So here we go. I won't be breaking them down by congressional district or by presidential candidate. I'm just going to read the 37 names. I will start with males. Jim Frazier, Francis Harjo, Jeffrey Barong, David Perryman, Samuel Graff, Jason Lowe, Scott Inman, Reverend George Young, Tim O'Connor, Andrew Guerrier, Gaber, Michael Smith, Mark Henriksen, Taz Almichael, Brian O'Brien, Jeremy Gibson, Charles Threadgill. The females are Elaine Dodd, Joe Glenn, Deborah Proctor, Amber Jensen, Catherine Hewitt, Catherine Cummings, Jakia Pendleton Harrison, Robbie White, AJ Pittman, Jana Harkins, Amanda Swope, Betty Harris, Darcy Woodson, Emily Gamble, JoBeth Harmon. So I have to say that there are 4 women who are too close to call and 1 male slot that is too close to call. Our national committee man and committee woman are Governor David Walters and Kaylin Free. These will be posted on the website. They are conditional through verification. And I want to thank everyone for bearing with us through our first ever, and I hope we don't have to do this virtual convention. I want to thank all of the people who gave their Saturday today to come through and help out. We have Scott Hamilton, Ryan Starkweather, Stuart Schofield, Tucker Gamble, Joshua Harris Till, Jasmine Brown Jutras, Edith Mercado, have all are in the office helping make this happen. We have Angela Allman, who's helping to get this on the website, Andrew Rickle, who is doing our counting. Thank you all. We'll get the results posted as soon as possible. On Tuesday, we will send out Zoom instructions for the follow-up meeting that will be held on Saturday, June 13th. Everyone have a great Saturday. Have a great weekend, and we'll be in touch. Thanks.
Madam Chair.
Oh, we are adjourned.
Madam Chair. Tim has his hand up. He's asking about the electors. She didn't listen.